Let's date forever. Here's your weekly dose of relationship fuel with Sammi and Nathan Jaeger. Hello and welcome to our third birthday celebration for Date Forever.
Oh my gosh.
I know. Who could have believed that we would be here 3 years ago?
Yeah. 3 years of podcasting every week for 3 years.
Yeah, it's been amazing.
150 plus episodes.
Yeah.
At least. Who knows how many guests?
Yeah.
Well over 100.
Well over 100 guests, joining us and sharing their wisdom with us.
So thank you so much for being with us and along for the ride, whether or not you are an OG listener or maybe this is the first episode you're ever listening to. Welcome. Thank you. We started this podcast with a mission to create better relationships and a better world by sharing relationship education and conversations that we hadn't heard too many of before launching the podcast. So thank you so much for being with us, and we've got something exciting planned for this app.
Yeah, so to celebrate 3 years, we're going to share the 3 things that we've learned throughout our podcasting journey that have really helped shape our relationship as it is today.
Yeah, I mean, we've learned plenty more than 3 things over this 3 years, but the 3 things that we wanted to share with you today are probably the things that are the most like living, breathing, real life rituals and practices that Nathan and I have embedded into our relationship from learning from this podcast and from this experience.
But before we dive into those 3 things, Sammi, what's been fueling you up this week?
Okay, well, if you listened to last week's episode, you'll know that Nathan was sick, and now I am.
I was sick for the remainder of last week too, so...
Yeah, so I thought I had dodged it. I thought I was doing well. I thought I was squeaky clean, healthy. And then I think my body was allowing me to get through my big mammoth week last week. And then I collapsed in a heap at the end of the working week. And I've spent the last couple of days surrounded by snotty tissues and wearing my trackies and not really doing a whole lot. So the thing that fueled me up before getting unwell was that I had a couple of really great career wins with some of my clients. A couple of my clients had really great breakthroughs, and it feels like they've turned a corner, which is always really great to witness and to be part of. Yeah, but I think those are the things that fueled me up outside of feeling a bit rubbish. What about you, Nath? What fueled you up?
So mine was just giving myself the time and space to recover. But the other little thing that did fuel me up throughout the last week was actually you getting me out of the house a few times. When you're sick, the last thing you really want to do is get out and go for a walk and things like that. But that was one of the things that really did actually make me feel better. Like as soon as I was able to get out of the house and get some fresh air and some sunlight and move my body a little bit, I felt really good while I was doing that. So thank you to Sammi for getting me out of the house.
You got to move every day because you love yourself. That's my mantra, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Move my body because I love myself.
So as we mentioned, what we're going to be exploring today is the 3 things that we've learned throughout our podcasting journey from our guests that have really helped shape our relationship and that we've really deeply embedded into our relationship. So Sammi, how about it? Do you want to kick us off with number 1?
Yeah, so number 1 is our weekly check-in chat. So I think this was something that you and I used to do very haphazardly. We would check in with each other. Well, I don't know, I guess whenever one of us probably felt like there was a hot button issue that needed discussing.
Yeah, too much stuff to like keep mulling around in our brains and we needed to get it out.
But early on, I think this was maybe even early in year 1, we had Harry and Tristan on the show. The guys are business partners at Purpose Advisory, but they're both in long-term romantic relationships, and they shared a little bit with us about what they do in their own relationships that works. And something that Tristan shared specifically was this idea of a weekly happy hour. And he and his wife share an agenda, and this was something that they had got from their relationship therapist or counselor, I can't remember. But then they did sort of adapted it and made it their own. So Tristan shared the questions that he and his wife go through every week, to really take care of their relationship, to add fuel, to prevent resentment, to shake out anything that wasn't discussed during the week, and to proactively plan for the following week. So if you want to go back and listen to baby Sammi and baby Nath, who are only a handful of months into their podcasting journey, to listen to this episode, it's called Understanding Your Inner Motivations to Create a Better Life with Harry and Tristan. So there's some other really good stuff in that episode too about our 6 core human needs and understanding our motivating drivers behind our actions. But the thing that Nathan and I really took away from that episode was the idea of creating a reoccurring conversation, structure, rhythm, heartbeat around intentional conversations about our relationship.
Yes, this is a practice that Sammi and I picked up almost exactly how Tristan had described it. And it's something that we tried on in the format that it was, and then really have evolved it to take on a few of our own questions that we wanted to ask each week and really made it our own. So this is something that we run every Sunday, normally Sunday afternoon. We often do it out at a park or at the beach, or if we're going out for coffee or something like that in the morning, we'll tee it in with that. But it's really just an opportunity for us to be able to check in with a number of things to get us set up for the week. So to give you a quick little rundown on what this happy hour chat looks like, the first question is really about appreciation. So what would you like to be appreciated for this week? And what would you like to give your partner appreciation for this week? The second thing we check in on is the calendar. So what's going on for you this week and what's going on for your partner this week? And is there anything on the horizon that we need to be aware of as well in the next few weeks? The third thing we check in on is food. So what are we going to eat this week? How and when, and who's going to be organizing it? Who's going to do the planning and prep, and who's actually going to do the cooking? The fourth thing we check in on is money. So this can be as simple as pulling up your banking app, checking whether you're on track for the week. Is there any expenses that are coming up that we need to be aware of? But really just being aware of what your money situation looks like for the week. Number 5 is expectations. So that's all about what are you liking in the bedroom? What are you not liking? What do you want to try? And how are you feeling about your body? And then number 6 is a few quick fire questions that we run through as well. So the first one is, how did you feel for this week? Was it a good one, a bad one, or another kind of week? How connected do you feel to me? What would you like me to apologize for? Is there something that I've done or not done this week that has upset you? And what are our priorities for the next week? Is it health, wealth, career? What's the focus for this week? And then what can I help you with? Or what could I do to make your life better?
So there's so many parts of this agenda that have really helped Nathan and I to stay on the same page in a really predictable kind of way. We've talked about this in other episodes, but I've reflected on how much this one practice has really allowed us to let air out of the balloon before anything pops, particularly with the question, what would you like me to apologize for? And what would you like to be appreciated for? It's surprising how often there are things that one of us has felt particularly unseen for contributing or doing or holding down, or maybe an incident that kind of felt like a small thing at the time, but then, you found yourself still thinking about it a day or two later, where it's probably not felt like such a big deal to bring it up, but because we have the reoccurring format, there is a safe place to bring it up, and it allows us to get better and better every week, and not let things fester or build up under the rug, under the carpet, or back to my earlier analogy, adding more air into the balloon.
So although this is something that we try and do every week, we do miss it every now and then, or we get halfway through the agenda and things like that. But we do really try and do this almost every week, because we do find it's so beneficial to helping us set us up for a successful week that we really miss it when we aren't able to do it. I think one of the key things around it is that it stops all these ad hoc life admin conversations throughout the week, and we can bundle it all up into a little 1 or 2 hour block and really set ourselves up for success.
Yeah, I would say that the conversation was maybe a little bit clunky and a bit awkward when we first started, particularly around those questions like, what would you like to be appreciated for, and what would you like me to apologize for? They are entering the danger kind of conversations or questions. But now it's something that's just so natural and so easy to flow through. Like, we don't even need the list of questions anymore. For the most part, we can both recall what it is that we want to talk about and in what order. I think the other thing that we've done that really has made this our own is we now piggyback our fair play cards onto the back of this conversation. So if you haven't heard us talk about this before, fair play is a concept by Eve Rodsky about distributing the tasks within your household. And she's got a really great book and a deck of cards. So we generally take a quick look at our deck of cards and make sure that the right person is holding the right task or right responsibility for that week. And sometimes we exchange things, but it's a really nice way to recap and create a lot of visibility around the role and contribution that each of us are making to our household and helping it to hum along smoothly.
So the second concept that we've taken and really run with in our relationship is this idea that was originally floated by Keith Abraham, which is around the 100 lifetime goals. So if you haven't had a listen to it, you can go all the way back to episode 1, where we had an amazing chat with Keith Abraham. But he's got a really great exercise around working out your 100 lifetime goals. It's a really simple process. He's got some really great questions and prompts and things like that to help you develop your lifetime goals list. This activity can be a bit of a set and forget, but we've really run with it and we've embedded it into our annual game plan process.
So we always had, I shouldn't say always, but for the last in excess of 5 years, maybe even more, have had a process of taking a day or two towards the end of the year to plan the following year, to review the year that was and set intentions for the following year. But after being introduced to the 100 Lifetime Goals by Keith Abraham, we've integrated those 100 lifetime goals into that annual review. So every year we're talking about our 100 lifetime goals and what are the things that we really want to do or acquire or experience this year that are from those big lifetime goals.
So this process has been really interesting for us to see what the things are that we really wanted to achieve last year, and to check in and see what we've actually been able to achieve over the last year. So the really interesting thing about this is that even without necessarily focusing on achieving some of these goals, it's amazing how much by having done the planning process, you might have made some really good progress to achieving some of these, even if you haven't actively focused on them.
Yeah, and that's kind of the crazy thing that Keith talks about, is that just even the process of writing down your goals makes you far more likely to achieve them. And then you're even more likely again if you tell somebody else about it. So I think why this has been so impactful for Nath and I is that it puts us on the same team.
Yeah, it does.
And that's something that Keith talked about in that very first episode of Date Forever, was about something that couples need to feel growth is a common goal, is to be making progress towards something. And that's what this does. This creates a lens and a framework for us to acknowledge, hey, look at us. We are on the same team. Look what we've already achieved and look what we're out to achieve.
So if you want to go through this process of unpacking your own 100 lifetime goals, I'd highly recommend checking out Keith Abraham and his 100 Lifetime Goals worksheet. So we've added the link to our show notes. So go over there and check it out.
So the third big thing in our 3 years of podcasting that we now live and breathe in our own relationship is this idea of interdependence. So you may have heard of a codependent relationship. You may have heard of someone being fiercely independent, but we are striving for that sweet spot right in the middle called interdependence. There's been quite a few guests who have talked about this idea, but I think the guest that articulated it the best was Miranda Clare. And she talks about this idea of two people walking through the forest at nighttime with their own torchlights out in front of them. And their own torchlight is lighting up the pathway in front of them, and the person next to them, their torchlight is lighting up the path in front of them. But then there's this beautiful spot in the middle where both of the beams of light are overlapping. And she said that's kind of what you want out of your relationship and your life, is that I've created my own beautiful beam of light, and that's my life, and that's my relationships, and that's my hobbies, and that's my interests, and that's my relationships with my friends, my family, my peers, my own individual aspirations. That's the business that I want to create. That's the career goals that I'm chasing. And that makes my life full and beautiful and well lit. And that I want to have a person who has that for themselves.
And so it's really about finding this sweet spot of where you've both got your own individual lives, but the overlap in the middle really does complement each other, and it really helps broaden your horizons as well, and broaden your scope of view.
So you might know a couple who have one person who's got a really beautiful big beam of light out in front of them, and the other person that really doesn't have their own. They're walking in the shadow of the other person's torchlight. That's far more of someone who's independent, or potentially two people who are sharing one light, and everything is done together. There's overlap in absolutely everything, and it's very codependent.
So the way that this has played out in our relationship is that it's made us very conscious about ensuring that we each have our own individual time to be able to pursue our own hobbies and do the things that we love and spend it with the people that we each individually love as well, rather than always doing everything together and just turning into this one singular beam of light.
Yeah, so for us, I think this was already something that we innately did really early on in our relationship. Even 18 months after we got married, I went on a big solo overseas adventure. You were taking trips on your own. We lived apart for 6 months. So I do think this is something that we were quite innately good at, but I feel like as we've got more aware of how impactful it is for you to have your own bonfire burning and me to have my bonfire burning, just how important that is. And I think we've become even more aware of creating beautiful lives where we don't need the other person, but we want them there.
Yeah.
So for us, this looks like girls' weekends away, guys' weekends away, individual time with our own friends, carved out time for hobbies where the other person's not involved at all, more solo time. And I think the hard part for us in this is that Nathan is far more introverted than I am. So sometimes I need to quite literally beat him out the house and tell him to leave. So yeah, again, this isn't something that we're perfect at. And especially we like each other's company.
Yeah, we do.
We enjoy doing things together, and our friends kind of like each other. Yeah, but I think it's really important to carve out space that is our own. So over 3 years of podcasting, those are the 3 really big ideas that have really made the most amount of impact in our relationship. So our weekly happy hour agenda, our annual recheck-in on our 100 lifetime goals, and really embedding that as a language and something that we talk about regularly within our relationship, and striving for interdependence. If you've been a long-time listener of the show, we would love to know what are your 3 big things. So as always, slide into our DMs. We are most active on the gram, so come on over, date forever.
So to say thank you for joining us today and being part of our community, whether it's been for 1 episode or for the last 150 episodes, we've given 10 blocks made of recycled plastic waste to rebuild a classroom in Indonesia. This project is managed by Classroom of Hope and has been made possible via our partnership with Buy One, Give One. So thank you so much for listening.
Thanks heaps for joining us. If you love what we're doing here and want more, subscribe to the Date Forever podcast to make sure you never miss an ep. Come and hang out with us and other awesome couples who are fueling up their relationships in the Thriving Couples Collective Facebook group, or check us out at fuelcollective.com.au. Until next time, keep on dating, because better relationships equal a better world.